So I'm finally getting caught up on other cars enough to where I can stop and take a minute for the Mustang. I'm having an issue with the Mustang. You can see here the tread on the tire looks nice. But here this other side, this tire is bald. And I spotted this and realized there's something going on here I need to investigate. I came over here, I played with this wheel, trying to wiggle it in and out, and everything's nice and tight. Well, what's going on? Why am I getting toe change? It's eating up the outside edge of this tire. Because you can see, the inside tread looks all right. Well, that one checked out fine, but this one over here, if you look down here at this ball joint, the ball joint's loose. It's right in here. That's where my movement is. I could feel on the backside this ball joint's the dust boot is busted out. I don't know if the camera will get that or not. But that really irks me because this is a brand new control arm. I say brand new. I rebuilt the front suspension on this car about 3 or 4 years ago, and I put a new ball joint or a new control arm on it. And the ball joint's already bad. And I'm gonna have to look. I don't remember if I got the actual Ford motor part or if it's an aftermarket part. But that you know, here I'm actually taking some time to put some decent parts on this car because I want it to be a good long, driving car. And that's just rotten. So I've got to take care of that. I don't have that part on hand. I'm probably going to have to pay parts store prices because I've got to get this thing back up and running. But I've also got oil leak. I mentioned that last time I had this car on video, and I was hoping it was just maybe somebody spilled some oil because I'd taken it to Wally World for an oil change. But no, there's a gasket right up in here between the oil filter between the oil filter mount and the block. And my buddy Wayne actually clued me in on that. His daughter's got a V8 Mustang, and hers had that leak. I've got to pull this off, clean it up, and replace that gasket in there. I need to do an oil change on this car. It's been a little while. The oil's not looking terrible, as you can see. It's still got a nice brown tint to it, but I need to get it changed. And then the whole splash guard here underneath the front end is missing. I got a replacement on Rock Auto. They're actually really cheap, but I got to get some hardware to replace missing hardware, and I need to fix that split on the, you can see where I fixed that split in my bumper already with some epoxy and a metal tab, but I've got to reattach it. It's broken loose again. I need to do the same fix on my wife's car, but I'll get around to it. So yeah, I've got my work cut out for me, and I've got to get this car back up and running quick, so we'll see how it goes. Don't you hate it when you realize that your oil filter housing that has to come off to replace a gasket has a coolant passage running through the middle of it? If you got to replace this, you got to drain the coolant as well as the oil. What a pain in the butt. That's an engineer who needs a slapping. Just so you know, if you're an engineer, don't make it so I have to break multiple systems to fix one of them. So I try to be honest on this channel. I'm going to wrap myself out. I haven't done hardly anything as far as maintenance on this thing in the past few years. It's been running like a top. It's got 185,000 miles on it. The original coolant was in this engine. I just drained it out to get to that thing down there. And my belt's cracked and I need to replace it. And I didn't realize that there's 4 radiator hoses on this thing. 3 there and then 1 there I still need to take off. I can only get 3 of them. I ordered them from Rock Auto. I was going to have this thing down tonight and try to have it back up for tomorrow. No. My daughter's old car is here, and it's not running great, but it's running well enough for me to get around. So also PCV hose split when I had it was on here, and it broke, and yeah, I'm gonna have to order another one of those. So far I'm up to $200 in parts, and I don't even have the belt or the PCV hose added into that, or a jug of coolant. Deferred maintenance. That's what this car is. It's all deferred maintenance right now, but I plan on rectifying that and getting it back up into shape. But when you got other things going on, what takes priority? The car that's not running, the car that is. Well, I'm not doing maintenance on a car that's running if I've got fixes I have to do on other cars. So I'm glad I finally have it down so I can tackle this stuff. And like I said, I'm gonna be honest and show it to you in all of its dirty details. Original coolant with 180,000 miles. Still looked good, but yeah, it's time to change it. All right, so now we're getting into a little bit of project creep. I do have a new belt. I forgot that I had it sitting up there on the toolbox, so that's great. That saves me 20 bucks. But I went to put the belt on and got it put in place, and as I was releasing the tensioner onto it, I realized I didn't check the tensioners. This one's been replaced a while back. It was making noise. I got a new one. It feels good. You don't see any grease coming out of the bearing. It appears to be a good tensioner still. This one, you can't hear it, but it was, when I spun it on the engine, it had a little bit of a, you could hear it. And you can see where the grease has come out of the bearing. So this one's shot. This one doesn't like to spin at all. Usually, you don't want them to spin freely, but you want them to have less resistance than that. And I can see where grease has come out of this one, so this one's bad. And then the tensioner itself, do I replace it? Well, I can see where the grease has come out of it, and if I don't know if you can hear that, that bearing's about shot. I mean, if I could pump grease in that bearing, it'd probably go another 100,000 miles, but the grease is out of it, it's loose, it's time to replace it. So I went from, gee, I've got to put this gasket on when I do my oil change, to replacing belts, replacing tensioners, replacing PCV hose. I got to replace the radiator hoses. Oh, what a day. But I was hoping to have this back up and running tomorrow. It's not. It's going to be down all weekend, and I know it. I'm going to see what parts I can get. I already placed a Rock Auto order, and it'll be here next week. That's kind of frustrating, but at the same time, I'm looking at $200 in hoses alone if I don't shop Rock Auto. Not that I want this to be a Rock Auto advertisement, but if they're going to save me 50% on my parts, I'm gonna call it out. I'm gonna say it. So, and I'm ordering decent quality parts. I'm not looking for the made in China cheapest part. I'm looking for the hoses. I'm getting Gates hoses. For the bearings, if I can get Timken, I'd like to get Timken. I'm not sure if these come in a Timken brand. My ball joint, I could have got SKP, but I'm going to get Moog instead, just because I like Moog. I know they make good parts. That's what's on Way Cool Jr. So I am going for better parts. And Rock Auto doesn't have a problem with counterfeit parts like eBay does. So that said, here I am wearing an eBay Motor shirt. Well, they gave me a free shirt. What can I say? So this is kind of on hold now until I go get my suspension part. The engine stuff's going to stay torn down. And the suspension part I can get this evening, and I'll get the suspension back together. Hopefully I can get a PCV hose. I can't believe that just the end flew off too, and I don't know where it went. I'll have to. It'll probably melt to something in the next 50,000 miles, or it'll fall out. But yeah, I gotta get one of these. So, all right, here's the offending part that started all this. This is the oil filter mount, and you can see there's this gasket here, and yeah, it's the coolant wasn't leaking, but it was about to. The oil was leaking, and I'm not seeing where it was leaking from, but it was leaking. That's all you need to know. So it was time to replace this part, but it just frustrates me that Ford ran the coolant and the oil through the same part. Good grief! What would it have taken to separate these by ½ inch and put them on separate gaskets? That would have made more sense. It'd be more serviceable. But at the same time, I'm glad that I did take the cooling system apart, because that's who I was in for a rough time if I didn't catch that soon. But what evidence did I have? This thing's been running like a top for 185,000 miles. I'm gonna have to clean this surface up. Yeah, you can see here some staining. If I can get my finger a little bit cleaner here. You can see some staining right here where it looks like maybe it was leaking some oil externally. And there's oil all under the underside of the engine, but it's all lower than this. So it was leaking from this, going around the front of the pan and leaking down the passenger side as well. I may take this to the car wash and try and pressure wash that, but honestly, the car sits so low, I'm not really going to be able to hit it. And so I may hit it with some brake cleaner while it's under here, and that's going to be about as clean as it's going to get, and it's going to go on down the road with all that dirt and muck on it. Lowered problems, One of the things I haven't bought yet is a belt sander. If I had one and some fine grit, I would definitely resurface this. I I can feel that pitting there, and that really does need to be resurfaced. And this is one of those parts that the length is not absolutely critical on. You know, it's not going to cause a piston crash into a valve if I surface the oil filter mount. So yeah, but a belt sander is not in my budget this week, so that's going to stay at Harbor Freight for now. And I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up and put it back on. So I went to go to O'Reilly's to get the ball joint for this, and they got the wrong one in, and I was going to look at getting some of the replacement pulleys from them, and I realized, you know, I'm going to have it down for a couple days. Why am I even dealing with O'Reilly's, especially when they can't get me the right ball joint? So I ordered everything from Rock Auto, and come to find out there's a pulley kit. It comes with the tensioner, the idler pulleys, and a brand new belt for $100 on Rock Auto. It's Gates, it's a name brand, so I ordered that. I'm going to replace all the tensioners at once, even though this idler pulley is still good, and this is going to be parts. This is going to be a spare. But I was looking at the hoses here, and I figured I need to bring this up, mention this. You can see this hose looks oil soaked and it's squishy. This hose, and when I pulled it off, it did not feel good. It felt really spongy. This hose is close to blowing. You can see where it's been abrading on something. These hoses here, I wouldn't hesitate to reuse these if I needed to. I went ahead and got a whole new set of hoses just because if I'm going in there to do one, I'm going to do all the rest. I'm going to replace the water pump while I'm doing all this. You know, if I'm replacing the hoses and I'm putting fresh coolant in the radiator, if that thing's weak at all, it's going to start spewing next week. So think ahead on some of these things. I'm going to go ahead and replace the water pump. I put that on my Rock Auto order. So now I'm up to like $400 in Rock Auto parts. And, you know, I'm thinking, thank God I'm ordering it there instead of paying $800 at O'Reilly's to get all the stuff that I'm getting. But I'm doing a lot of work on this car that, you know, probably should have been done a year or so ago and didn't. I did order a PCV hose. The PCV hose that I'm seeing does not look like the one that came off this car. So it's going to be interesting to see if it's going to work or not. It's showing a straight connector on this end instead of a 90-degree connector. But that's one of the parts I ordered. Mustang's going to be sitting here on jack stands for a couple days. That's just how it is. I think while I'm at it, I'm going to clean these terminals up. I didn't put any battery protector on them last time, so I'm going to clean those up and throw some battery protector on those, some of the spray. And, yep, deferred maintenance. So, got the new water pump here. The old one doesn't look bad. The impeller on the new one is a lot bigger. So, it's going to fit. I can see that it's going to fit. I'm hoping it's going to flow plenty well and I'm not having to worry about it. But, I mean, I'm sure this is just like an updated version of it. So long as it doesn't hit the sides, I'm okay with it. But let's lube it up and get it installed. So I have the original PVC hose here, and this is what O'Reilly showed on their computer. This is what Rock Auto shows on their computer. Everybody shows this for the 2006 Mustang. It does not fit. The fittings aren't even this size. That's just stupid. So I'm not going to be able to fix the PCV hose yet. I may just have to put some electrical tape on this until I can order one. What the hell? You know, this is simple stuff. I say it's simple stuff. There's thousands of parts on this engine, and you know they change them from year to year just to keep everybody on their toes. But then you end up with stuff like this where you can't get the right part. So I thought I remembered how the pulleys went, and I put them on that way, but then I couldn't figure out how the belt routed, so I switched them around, and I can't get the belt route correctly, and sure enough, I had the pulleys right the first time around. If you have trouble getting your belt around this pulley here, that ought to be a clue. The threads on that, it felt like it was stripping out, but I knew I hadn't put that much torque on it, and basically it was just something gummed up in the threads. It's tight. It's about as tight as I want to get it. Remember, this is an aluminum block. I'm screwing these into aluminum. That's why I'm not hammering them down with the impact. These bolts going into steel, I don't mind tacking them down with the impact. These I want to hand tighten with the wrench so I can feel the threads, and those are all good and snug. I do want to dust. If you notice, I'm not getting all the way out here. I'm keeping choked up kind of high. That's a good way to keep from over tightening stuff, is to limit how much torque you have on it. They are all as tight as I want them to be. If you're a beginning technician, and honestly experienced technicians ought to pull out a torque wrench also, but I don't have the torque spec handy. And I've always been pretty decent about figuring out how tight that needs to be. Whenever you go to install one of these serpentine belts, always feel around the outside of all your pulleys and make sure it's seated all the way. You can get it one tooth off and it'll be mostly seated, and there's a chance it'll throw that belt. And there's a chance it'll self-align too, but always double check those pulleys. So, getting there. New water pump is on, new tensioners are on, the new oil filter gasket's on, and now I've just got to. So I went looking for all the radiator hoses, and the radiator hose that was bad that goes to the oil filter I have, but the lower radiator hose that goes from the radiator here and comes up with just a short ways to the thermostat, I can't get. Gates doesn't have it, Daco does not have it, everybody's out of stock. I guess the factory decided not to make those this month. I don't know, but I can't get that one hose. I want to replace all my hoses and I can't get that one. The hose looks good and I'm going to roll with it. That's about all I can do. It'll be on the next owner to replace it again. So let's get that together. I've already replaced my upper hose over here. I had to pull this top filler panel to get to it. I think we will put the top filler panel back on. If you're a beginning technician, you don't have any of these, get a handful of these trays. They won't stick to aluminum, but you can stick them anywhere you need to, pretty much. And it's just a nice little tray when you're under the hood. You have to hold small bits. So these hoses tend to be a little sticky, and you can get a tool to hook under there and work them around, but I find Nipex pliers, if I can put this in my vise and just hold it gently and I can twist this, that hose will pop right off. Does it tear this hose up? Probably, but I don't care about tearing this hose up. You can see it's already bell mouthed and everything. So alright, so there is a little bit of buildup right here, and you can see it's rust and it flakes off. So It may be minerals, I don't know. I'm gonna wire brush that and I'll be ready to throw the other hoses back on this, put this back together. There's that hose I can't replace. The rubber still looks good and pliable. I'm not feeling any weak spots inside. The corner here, the bottom edge here is good. It's not blowing out like this one was doing. You notice like that first bend where behind where it was is where it's all soft and squishy, and partly that's the oil that was getting on there. But normally I wouldn't worry about reusing this stuff, but I can see where it already prevented the hose getting tore up and abraded, so I'm gonna keep this stuff on. Alright, so while I'm in here I could zip this apart and replace the thermostat, but thermostats are one of those things where they tend to work or not work. They don't tend to, I'm sure they go bad over time, but it's not predictable to go bad. I've seen thermostats go bad right out of the box. I've seen them go, I've seen people never change their thermostat and not have a problem. So I'm not going to change the thermostat unless I see symptoms, and especially because, I mean, this is a divorced thermostat. I don't have to do much of anything to replace it. It's down here a little ways. It's stuck down here, but I mean I can get to it and replace it in an afternoon, and it's not like replacing thermostat on some old vehicles. I've had a buddy who had an '84 Thunderbird, and that was an 8-hour job replacing thermostat on it. This is not that bad, so I'm gonna roll with it. Alright, so I'm trying to get that bottom hose clamp on, and it's not going on. My Nipex pliers don't get in there at the right angle. I love these angle pliers, but for these heavy duty hose clamps like this, you just can't put enough torque on it without the small end slipping off. So I got two other pairs of pliers, and this is one of those mechanics tips. You can always use another set of pliers if you can find them at different angles. I would love to have something this size with this size head on it just for doing these hoses. But you can see this will work great for this one here. Use your free hand to push that up tighter as you release. That one's on. But yeah, underneath there I'm going to have to use a smaller pair of pliers. I may be able to get this one in there, we'll see. But I didn't tighten any of these hose clamps up. Even these ones that are, before I drop this in, I could have tightened this one up. But I've got to get that back hose in place before I go tighten this one. And that was a butt. Took all 4 pairs of pliers. Supposedly these little hose clamps lock in place so that you can lock them and then slide them in and then hit them with a screwdriver and they'll pop in. Don't ever trust your fingers with these things. They will slip loose and pinch you and tear your skin in a heartbeat. Always try to release your clamps in a way that they're not going to be cutting you if you go take stuff loose, and put them in place that you can get to them next time around. If you release that clamp and it springs and spins around to the backside where you can't get to it, if you got the time right now, fix it, because you don't want to be stuck on the side of the road trying to fix that thing. You want it to be easily accessible if you're in that kind of position. So pay attention to where your hose clamps end up. That's all the hoses. They're back on. My cooling system's back together. My oiling system's back together. I need to wash out my air filter. I've got a K&N on this and get it put back in place. I still haven't even touched the tie rod in, or the ball joints, which is what this was down for in the first place mostly. So yeah, but I can put oil and coolant back in it and plug these back up. So I think it's time to tackle that. Alright, so I got my K&N air filter. It's been a while since I've cleaned it out. It's got some bug guts in there and stuff in there. I'm gonna wash it in the kitchen sink. My wife's not home. And honestly, she wouldn't mind anyway, so long as I clean the sink after I'm done. But the little spray nozzle you have, that's the perfect strength for cleaning these out. You're not going to destroy the filter. This filter is 15 years old and still holding up fine. You can see some little dents and dings in the filter element here, because I've had it in and out so many times. But yeah, it's reusable. You just got to spray some fresh oil back on it. And that's, I hear a lot of different schools of thought on these filters. Some guys don't like the oil in them. Oh, that's going to kill your MAF sensor. I've heard guys say, that it does so much better. And some people say the paper element will trap so much more. It's got a finer micron on it. Back in the early days, they didn't have paper air filters. They had oil bath air cleaners. I don't know if you've ever seen one, but the way they work is you have a tub with oil in it, and the air that's sucked in the engine has to make a very sharp turn and go up, then down in the carburetor. And that sharp turn up is right above that oil bath. You had it filled right below that level. And so all the little particles sling out just a little bit further, hit that oil, and sink to the bottom. And the oil bath air cleaners were very effective. They're better than paper filters, but they're not as efficient. They're not as easy. You've got to refill that oil on an oil change. They require a little more maintenance. And so in the 60s, they started going to paper filters, and paper filters are easy. You just change them out, throw the old one away, put a new one in. You can sell a part, whereas the oil bath air cleaners, there was nothing to sell. You just cleaned it out and added fresh oil. So the oil bath air cleaners went away. And in the 90s, I know I worked for Nissan, and Nissan had these types of filters. They had like cotton inside, or it wasn't cotton, I don't know what it was, but it was a fiber inside, and it was oil soaked, and that was the factory air filter. And whenever you got them from the service department, the first thing you did was you took it over your trash can, you took your air nozzle and blew all the excess oil out. The oil soaked paper or fiber that they use is more effective than a straight up paper air filter element. It is going to trap more of that fine particulate that paper can't get, while still allowing it to breathe. But yeah, they can kill your airflow meter. If you don't knock off that excess oil, that will accumulate on your airflow meter wire, the wire that runs current through. At least back then, that's how they worked them. And so you had to knock that excess oil off, and then they would be effective air filters. So the K&Ns, I don't have a problem with them. A lot of people bad-mouthing them nowadays. When 20 years ago, the very same people were talking about how K&N was saving the world. So I'm going to keep running my K&N. I'm going to wash it off, and I'm going to oil it up, and I'm going to drop it in place, and it'll be just fine. Okay, I gotta say that was ugly. I should probably clean out that K&N more than once every 10,000 miles, but it is what it is. Let's get this back together now. So I've got a little bit of F4 tape here. The old guys I used to work with referred to this stuff as F4 tape, because supposedly during Vietnam that was what was holding the F4s together. You can find it on Amazon fairly cheap. It is a self-sealing tape. It sticks to itself incredibly well. As a matter of fact, if you don't get it off, it'll become permanent. But for what I'm doing here, resealing this PCV, that's exactly the tape I need. Yeah, you really don't want that on your skin. Honestly, I'm trying to be a good role model, so here we go. Got my gloves on, my goggles on. And let's clean up these terminals, because that's not good role model territory there either. Now I want to take both these terminals loose because you can see that can arc pretty easy. Not that the negative's not going to do anything really, but if the negative's attached and I touch from here to the frame, it's going to arc. So we get both of these off. They're less likely to arc on stuff. Less likely. Now, I didn't bring any cleaners out here with me. I got some Windex over there, some rubbing alcohol, stuff like that. Usually I rely on mechanical cleaning, you know, getting a wire brush after it. But that's going to require some chemical attention. That blue is not coming off. If I hadn't found this and tackled it right now, by the next time I did an oil change, this would probably eat through something. These brushes are cheap. Don't be afraid to tear them up. Now, you don't want this stuff all over your engine bay, so you do want to try to clean it up. I'm going to douse with some stuff after I'm done here. That negative terminal does not want to clean up easy. I'm going to go ahead and take this battery out. I'm going to clean the battery down here on the ground. Probably a good thing I'm taking this battery hold down loose. I just sprayed my windshield with PB Blaster. Put a little tiny dab of anti-seize on here. Did not manage to turn myself into a replica of the Tin Man. Feels successful. Not getting that rock solid tight. I'm getting good enough that the battery's not going to roll around. I want to tuck this down so it can't accidentally tap while I'm hooking this one up. Get your battery terminals all the way down. If you can't rotate your terminal sideways, it's tight enough. Alright, that is good and tight. Typically you don't have to use this stuff as much on the negative as you do the positive, but both my terminals were crusty, so they're both getting it. Alright, I'm liking it. So, the running gear is completely back together. Now it's a matter of the suspension. I'm going to fire it up and get the oil and coolant cycle a little bit and see where I'm at. Now honestly, I really need to run it until the thermostat opens up and cycle all the coolant through it, but I need to get the suspension apart and start working on these ball joints. So I'll do that later. I'm hearing a little bit of rattling from the engine. It sounds like maybe the cam guides are getting old. So I may be going in the engine here in the next 100,000 miles. My goal though is to sell this car before I have to do that. But I've got to get other things squared away first. So for now, it's going to be getting that suspension done. Well, I was hoping I could just drop the control arm down, replace the ball joint, and pop it back in, but no, it's not letting me do that. You gotta take it all loose, every little bit of it. And I'm just going piece at a time in backwards order of how I should go to get it all out. All right, I almost never use pickle forks. They tear up boots, they're not good. I want to reuse this tie rod end, but I need to get this knuckle loose from this. So I learned this a long time ago. You hit either side with a hammer at the same time, and it should pop loose. If it doesn't pop loose, you're not hitting it hard enough, and a lot of times you have to hit it really hard to get them to come loose. This metal here is thick enough that you're not going to ruin it by hitting it. That is really awkward, and I'm having a hard time getting it. I could pull the rotor off and pull the backing plate off and just swing this out and have a better aim at it. And I may still end up doing that. Boom, no pickle fork. I have run into a vehicle where that didn't work, and the pickle fork didn't work either. I took the whole control arm and spindle off, chucked it up in my vise, and had to use an air hammer to punch the piece out. So now I'm down to just the ball joint holding this together. And this is loose, but not loose enough. Sun's going down, I'm tired. I'm gonna tackle it tomorrow. All right, so I was having trouble getting the ball joint out yesterday. This is my Pitman arm puller. Let's see how it works. That ball joint does not feel bad, but this is the good side. All right, so now it's time to press this out. And I looked, and I don't have a socket big enough to go around here. I've got a 36 millimeter, which will sit right on top of the ball joint, and I've got a 54 millimeter, which won't stay between the rails here. And I don't have anything in between those two sizes. So I was looking for some roll cage tubing or something, and it's all the wrong size, but I've got this piece of exhaust flange, and I'm hoping it's thick enough wall. It fits right around that ball joint and rests on this lip here. So if I get this on here and flip it over, can I press this out? It's a good idea to wear safety goggles when you're working with the press, because if something does fly off and it hits your eye, that's going to hurt. Well, dang, I blew the bottom end out of the ball joint, but it didn't come loose. All right, I took it over to my vise and I was able to punch it the rest of the way out with a hammer and punch, but I'm not real crazy about how that came out. My exhaust tubing piece has flared out pretty good at the end there. It's bell mouthed, so that didn't really work. But it worked good enough for getting this out. My question now is, if I put the new ball joint in, is it going to be good and secure, or is it going to be a hunk of crap? So, time to try and put it together, see what I get. So I thought the camera was recording, and it wasn't. So you missed the part where I snap ring this in. This ball joint hammered in with just a couple taps of the hammer. I really don't like that, but it does have a snap ring that retains it, so that makes me feel a little more secure. When I put this in, you know, there's ridges made into this so that it doesn't, whenever you press it in, it stays where it's at, and you can kind of feel them as you try to turn it. And so I set it to where this grease zerk is facing inward to make it easier to service, to grease up. So there's my new ball joint in. I'm gonna go stick it on the car, see how it turns out, and then we'll start on the other side. All right, that's it. The side's back together. All right, so you can see the boot split, and if you watch, I'll try to hold as still as I can. Can you see that in and out movement? That was my toe change. So this is the offending one. I learned on the other side what to do and what not to do. Now, I learned what not to do. I don't know that I've learned what to do yet. I can't get on this well enough to press that out. I wonder if I can get... I may take a piece of exhaust tubing and split it so I can fit it over this and then see if I can press it out. I'm not real happy with how that last one pressed out. But there's no snap ring in these normally. I may try popping this boot off beforehand and see if that helps. Matter of fact, it's not a might. I am going to. That's loose. See if we can get a better. All right, so the other side came out easier. I found a slightly bigger piece of exhaust pipe, and this is a pretty thick wall for exhaust pipe, and it fit nicely and it worked perfectly. Popped this ball joint out. This side, the new joint going in, looks like it's going to be just as loose. But here's a little something to watch for. This one did not have the grease zerk installed, so I went to install it, and there's teeth marks on this. Somebody has done something stupid with this ball joint, and they buggered up the bottom end where I can't get the zerk into it. So I think I'm gonna have to run something through there. Yeah, see? Well, that may have got it. Yep, it's threading in now, but somebody's already dorked this thing up a little bit, but I can't wait. So I'm going to go ahead and put it together and hope it works. Alright, so you missed video of me putting this side back together because I use my old cell phone for a camera, and I use this cell phone for a camera, and the other one died, and so all the footage was just, you know, I didn't get any footage. So I got it back together. This side went together fine. I've hammered everything back down tight. One thing to remember on these style struts here, you've got to get these two bolts here just tight as can be. You don't want any slop in there. Your bolt back here that holds the control arm in, that's got to be tight, and same for these two that lock down the back. You just got to tighten them tight, tight, tight. If they're loose at all, or if they're not cranked down tight, they're going to work themselves loose and eat up your suspension mounting points. There's torque specs on them, look them up. But I got it all back together, and I went ahead and shot grease into the ball joints. This one, I tried to get it lined up so it would be facing inward, and it turned on me. But when I greased them, I didn't pump grease until I saw grease come out of it. I put 3 good shots of grease in there, and I quit. There's some grease in there from shipping. 3 squirts of grease ought to be enough for now. Next time I do any kind of work under here, I'll give it 3 more shots. And just each time I'm under the car, I'll probably give it 3 shots of grease. You don't want to fill it all the way up till grease starts coming out everywhere. That's a good way to bust a boot. Just be sensible about it. You can feel, if you've greased stuff enough, you can feel when the grease is flowing through the grease gun, and that's what I felt. I had resistance to the pumping action. I could hear that kind of, there's a sound when grease is going through the grease gun. It sounded like it was working. I didn't see the boot inflate or anything like that, but I got 3 good shots of grease in there. I think it's good. So I've got everything done I need to get done. It's just time to put the wheels back on this and wrap it up and see how it runs. Alright, everything feels tight. No crunchies, no looseness. Steering feels nice and tight again. I'm gonna need alignment. It's off to the left just a little bit. But, you know, if they aligned it with a bad ball joint, that's what I'm getting. But when I got the alignment, the guy should have said, hey, I found a ball joint loose. And that irks me. That's bad. I mean, if you're doing alignment, that's the first thing you check for is looseness and play in suspension. Otherwise, you align it, and it doesn't stay aligned. Every time the guy makes a turn, it changes alignment. Steering's tight. I don't have any crazy funkiness going on, no sounds. I'm gonna drive it to work tomorrow and see how it drives. Oh, move, squirrel. Remembered, I forgot to put that splash guard on. So that's gonna be laying around my shop until the next oil change. It's such a pain to jack this car up and down. I'm not gonna try to put that on. So now I got to get the Crown Vic out of there so I can get the Ford Focus back in and do all the fixes on it. And I've got to do a water pump on my wife's car. The radiator fixed most of the problem. It's not leaking bad, but it is losing a little bit of coolant over time. So it's getting a new water pump sometime the next month, and that should fix that for good. Her car's running tip-top. Other than that, well, it's running wise, it's tip-top. It needs new struts. I put brand new struts in it a while back, and they're already bad. And I didn't put the cheapest struts in. I put good name struts. Anyways, hope you learned something. Hopefully this is worth sharing. So let me know in the comments.